Okay, so here we're going to look at a worked example where we're going to calculate the oil in water and then we're going to add it to a regular report. So the objective here is to update an automated report with a new KPI showing the oil in water totalized over a month. To start with, we've got to calculate the water rate because it's not actually measured out of the LP separator. Then we need to find the lab analysis and we need to correct it because it actually comes in with the wrong timestamp. Then we're going to calculate the oil and water rate by multiplying the two together. Then we're going to totalize it each month and then we can update the daily report. So let's look at the first challenge, which is to calculate the water rate. We're going to do this by taking the measured total liquid out of the HP separator, which then flows into the LP separator. We're going to ignore the amount of antifoam that's injected to keep this simple. Then we've got the oil out, which is B. And we're going to assume a shrinkage factor of this oil because some of it turns to gas. We're going to assume it's 0.8. So that means our water flow out, C, is going to be made up of A minus B divided by 0.8. So let's look at how this looks in Ingenuity. So here's a schematic, a live diagram that someone's made, and this is fully user configurable. You put it in edit mode and you can see that someone's very kindly laid this all out for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the total liquid out here, we're going to add it to our basket, and we're going to take the total oil out and add it to our basket. Then I'm going to create an empty trend, and let's then add a new tag. We're going to add a calculation, and I'll click Build Calc. So if you remember, what we were trying to do here was A minus B divided by 0.8. So the first thing I need to do, let's do a division. Let's do B divided by 0.8. So we need to add a div. And first tag is the oil rate. So we'll add that in there. We'll add an argument. We're going to divide it by 0.8. Then we'll add a containing operation, which will be a subtract. So there's the sub. I'm going to add an argument. Then we need to move that up. So we're going to take the that is the total liquid inlet. Let's save that and add it to our trend. So there we have the calculated water rate. Now I'm going to add that to my basket for use later, but what I can also do to make life easier is I can create an alias. So if this is a calc that people might want to refer to often, let's call it the LP sep water rate. We are add. So now, if I just want to someone else to use that calculation, I can just search for it very quickly instead, and we'll do that in a second. So that's just got the water rate. Now, the next thing we need to do is to find the oil in water rate. Now, when we find the oil in water rate, which we'll do in a second, we'll see that we can trend it, and first of all, we'll get a smooth line. When this value is entered, it's one value that applies for the whole day. So we actually want to step it in order to make the calculation accurate. We can't linearly interpolate between the points. The other thing is that it's actually entered for a day, but it applies to the previous day. So we're going to need to time shift it as well. So not just by the day, but also we need to adjust it for the time zone, in this case, daylight savings time. So we're going to need to apply stepped profile and time shift it. So let's look at that now. So here's our search panel, and we're going to search for the historian tag, which has the oil in water data. So we'll type oil in water, press enter, and there we go. We've got the lab analysis of the oil in water. So if I click on it to trend it, here you see that we've got this smooth profile between all the points, and that we can't have that. Let's just expand it to say 30 days. There. Now, what I'm going to need to do actually in here is I need to, instead of having a smooth line, first of all I want to just get the raw points, and then I want to plot a step after the points. There. Now we've got the proper profile. But the issue we have again is that this timestamp that's been entered is not correct. We've got 1 in the morning for say the 16th of October, but that actually applies to midnight on the 15th of October. So I'm going to add this to my basket, and then I'm going to add a new tag here. I'm going to make a calculation, build it again, and the first thing I want to do is to force this value to be stepped. So that means if I do anything like totalizing, on this value, it will keep it stepped forwards. So you can see here what it does. It takes like a linearly interpolated signal and turns it into a stepped signal. And then we need to add a containing operation, which is a time shift. So I'm going to add a time shift here, and I need to time shift it by 25 hours backwards, because 24 hours would be a day, but I need the extra hour to get it back to midnight. So let's save that and add it to our trend here. So now we can see that if we look at our value, that on the 16th of October at 1 in the morning in the blue has now been shifted back to here, which is midnight. It just happens that the cursor can't get exactly midnight, but it has been shifted back to exactly midnight the day before. So that's us now got our corrected oil in water lab analysis. So when we multiply that by the water rate, we'll get the correct number. So let's add that to our basket. Okay, let's put that all together now. We're going to calculate the oil in water rate, which means we'll take the LP separator water rate we calculated earlier, we'll multiply it by the corrected oil in water, which is actually in ppm, and we'll divide it by 1,000,000 to get to correct for ppm. Then we can create an alias to make it accessible to others. We're going to totalize it over a month, and optionally we could add a user alert or limit to that as well. Okay, so there's the graph we made before. Let's just clear that off and start with a clean graph. So to bring up a clean graph quickly, I'll just trend nothing, and let's search for that alias that we created earlier, the LP separator water rate. There we are, DB aliases, LP separator water rate. So there's the water rate coming off, and let's add to that now our corrected oil and water in ppm. And in fact, let's just expand it a bit. Let's get 90 days up there, so we've got a bit of time to look at. Right, so what we now need to do is multiply the LP, the water rate, by the oil and water. So let's add that to my basket because it's not in there, and let's add a calculation. Build the calculation. So the first thing I need to do is add a multiplier. I'm going to take my LP separator water rate, I'm going to multiply it by my corrected oil and water, and I'm going to divide it by 1,000,000. Now, to make life easy, I'm just going to multiply it by 0.501, which has exactly the same effect. Save, and I'll add that to my trend. Now that number is quite small, so I'm going to change the axis that is living on. And there we go. You can see that we've now got a trend of the data. So let's add that to the basket, and now let's totalize it. So let's add another tag quickly. Let's just clear that one off, and we'll build one again. This time we're going to add a totalizer. And from our basket, let's get the calculation we did, the tag to be totalized. We want to do it over a month. We want to start it at the beginning of the month, begin month. The data rate is per hour, standard meters cubed per hour, and these are for another day, but we'll just enter defaults 1 for now and save. Okay, let's add that to our trend. That's added now, and let's put it on the same axes as the oil and water. There we are. So we've got our totals now, and it's resetting at the end of the month. Perfect. So I'm going to add that to my basket because I'm going to use that in a KPI later. If I wanted to add a limit so I could get an email alert either on the total for the month or one of the other values, I can just right click here and say edit limits. And this actually then allows me to create a new limit based on that tag. And then I can get an email alert or something to my mobile app if I've got it installed. Okay, now let's look at adding the KPI to the report. We're going to add it to this section up here that already has the total production. So here's my report. I'm going to put the KPI in edit mode, and then I need to add a column. Now, let's configure the title first quickly. It's going to be a text type, and let's say monthly total oil in produced water. Save. Now to add the KPI, I'm going to use a template. I'm going to use a level indicator with a reference value like this. So that's perfect. We'll add that. So now click on it to edit it. I've got a default value in here of 1, 2, 3, 4, but I'm going to take the tag that I added to my basket, drag it in there. Units standard meters cubed, that's perfect. Maximum 2000, that's a bit much. The maximum realistically is going to be 4. The reference value of 2000 is too much. Let's say I've got a limit of 3 meters cubed for the month, and those other things are okay. So let's save that. Okay, now I can see here the decimal places are wrong. I need a few more decimal places in this. Let's add 3. Okay, there we go. So that looks nice. I'm happy with that. And that's it. That's the KPI added to the report. And the subject of another lesson can be how to then use this with the automated reporting tool. But that's it. I hope that was useful. That's how to create a virtual time series of the oil in produced water and then add it to a report.